This is the Iroquois roundhouse. And look at this turtle shell made into a mask. Treaty with King Blunt and the neutral Tuscaroras. A deadly medicine. Demon rum and smallpox. Oh my God. That was really the worst thing about the contact with the European society, culture. After the Tuscaroran War, 1711-1712, colonial officials tried unsuccessfully to regulate the flow of liquor. It's a liquor bottle found in site of Fort Nicoroca. Look at all this. Okay, women in Native American society. Pottery shards, they made the pottery. Probably did all the work too. At the death of a chief, the son of his sister succeeded him. This is a John White painting, drawing. I guess it would be a painting. Tuscaroras held nighttime feast in the fall to return thanks to the good spirit for the fruits of the earth. Effigy stones. These are ads for runaways, rewards for capturing runaways, risk restraints, record of slave traders. Look at the price, $1,500. There's one for $4,500. Oh, a 7. The spoons are all large. Look at this lady's hairdo here. Sarah Campbell Sanders and Rebecca Johnston Broughton Lee. Unidentified free woman of color. Look at this bookcase. And we have tanned animal hide. William Alexander Smith, planter and politician. Net weights. And what is this? Antebellum bathtub. Wow, must be made out of copper. And a little seat there. And a soap holder. Ashley Gay Powell Plantation near Smithville. Look at the big spinning wheel. That thing is huge. And look how they used to hang chairs on the wall. Get them up out of the way. A fine country for poor people. That sums it up. They came here from land. They came from the Virginia Tidewater area. In the 1760s, the Carolina backwoodsmen rose up against county and provincial officials because they were felt overtaxed and underrepresented. Those would be the regulators. Governor Tryon had to deal with the regulators, which he did rather harshly. Be a man leading a voodoo dance. And these men, African Americans, enlisted in the Revolutionary Continental. They were Continental soldiers. Governor Benjamin Williams, two Johnston natives on opposing sides. So one was with the Continentals and the other was with the British. Moore's Creek is not too far from here. Look at this gristmill wheel. And here's a ferry. See how they did it? They have a rope or, no, it's probably a rope. They'd pole across the river. The Neuse River in this case. This is the way they would construct. There's a dovetail. Look how they chopped that one. Mortise and tenon. And these are the tools that they used. Needless to say, it was labor intensive. Civil War. Mobilizing troops. From morning until night, we heard fife and drum, or the talk of the citizens that preparations were being made all over the South for a contest which would soon end in favor of states' rights. You know, I thought the war would be short. Took a picture with his wife. Around 1,600 men left Johnston County to fight for the Confederacy. 450 did not return. Many came home unable to speak above the whisper for months, wounded, missing limbs, having nightmares, carrying bullets and artillery fragments inside their heads and torsos. Johnston County had no general or colonel to boast. Financing the war, financed by tariffs on imports and taxes on exports. The naval blockade put a crimp in their revenue resources. These are cannonballs, grape shot, shells, and bullets. Mini balls, they were called. Look how big they are. Peace platform is what he was pushing for. The Home Guard, 2 regiments of state militia in eastern and western Johnston County were responsible for keeping order at home and protecting the soldiers' wives, children, and elderly family. Members of the Home Guard was a haven for Johnston's numerous pro-Union men who preferred not to fight for the Confederacy, and for planters who do not want to give up management of their plantations and slaves. The Home Guard was supposed to apprehend deserters and send them back to the army, but evidence suggests that Johnston militia was lax in this regard. The number of soldiers came back home without leave was so great that by August 1864 that 2 state militia units were called out to capture and destroy the deserters. Union occupation, April 1865. Along the river, Brogden Road, Thomas Atkinson's. These are reunion ribbons and etc. Joe Jackson, Joe Johnston, General Lee. The Great Invasion. They're talking about Sherman marching into North Carolina through Fayetteville. They couldn't stop him. He had like 100,000 or more troops. E.H. Holt's last cavalry charge. 100 men remaining in a brigade of mounted cavalry at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. Roll top desk. Johnsonians at Appomattox. The 53rd North Carolina Infantry Regiment was one of several units composed of Johnston County men who remained with General Lee when he surrendered. Here's the doughboy. All right, that's a little Civil War history here. The occupation of Smithville. Cheering rolled along the lines. Carolina Campaign. You're standing at the 3rd Johnston County Courthouse to occupy this site, replacing the one located here during the war. On April 11th, 1865, fighting swirled around you through the streets of Smithville. The Confederate defenders burned the Neuse River Bridge at Bridge Street as they withdrew. Elements of the 75th Indiana Infantry were the first to occupy the town. When Union General William T. Sherman arrived the same day, he immediately established his headquarters here in the courthouse. At about 5 a.m. the next morning, he received word that 3 days earlier, Confederate General Robert E. Lee had surrendered his army at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia. So this is where he heard the news of Lee's surrender. Sherman stood on the courthouse steps and shouted the news to his men as they marched by. Major Henry Hitchcock of Sherman's staff watched as brigade after brigade came along our headquarters and were told the news. Imagine the billows of tumultuous cheering which rolled along the lines. Meanwhile, band after band made the little town echo with music as beautiful as it was patriotic. The Union Army occupied Smithville for 2 days before advancing to Raleigh. And here's the second courthouse. That would be where they were standing, I guess. And here they are, Union troops, Sherman's troops, parading. Oh, it's Savannah, Georgia. Well, it sounds like they